Are you a cat lover who loves the idea of owning your own cat cafe? Then this is the podcast for you. Join me, Angeli Rodriguez, owner of the Woody Whisker Cat Cafe and author of the book Drinks and Whiskers, as I walk you through my tips and tricks to help you open a successful cat cafe. Are you ready? Let's do this. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Drinks and Whiskers podcast, the place to be to get the inside scoop on what it's really like to open and run a successful cat cafe. I'm your host, Angeli Rodriguez, and I'm so excited to introduce today's guest on the podcast, Kate Benjamin. Kate is a cat style expert and the founder of Haus Panther, a lifestyle brand that focuses on helping people live stylishly with their cat. She has co-authored 2 New York Times best-selling books with cat behaviorist Jackson Galaxy and has made appearances on several cat shows, including Animal Planet's My Cat from Hell. She has been interviewed by the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, the Washington Post, USA Today, New York Daily News, People, Pets, the Oprah Magazine, and many more. As time permits, Kate consults on residential catification projects, as well as cat cafes, shelters, and rescues. Welcome to the show today, Kate. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. This is one of my favorite topics, cat cafes.
Awesome. So please tell us more about your amazing brand, Haus Panther.
So I, way back in 2007, I had my first couple of cats, and I have a design background. And at the time, I was working as the director of marketing at a modern children's product company. And I was working with a lot of the mommy bloggers and noticing that there was this trend where they were writing about stylish things for children. Just because you have kids, your house doesn't have to look like a daycare center. And so
True.
I said, well, how come nobody's doing this for cat people,
Right.
So I started digging around and I started writing about well-designed products. And because I come from a design background, that kind of incorporates both the aesthetic as well as the functionality of the product. So it really has to make your life better, your cat's life better. It has to contribute something to living with cats. And then I started writing about these things. And then I met Jackson Galaxy, who is a cat behaviorist, who then brought a whole new world to what I was doing, which is really understanding that we're not just making our homes beautiful, but we're creating spaces that are truly enriched and give cats their very best lives. Because we're talking about, I prefer indoor only cats, keep them safe. And so you have to give them those things that cater to their natural instincts. So he found a lot of his clients when he would go into their houses and say, well, you need to hang some shelves or put a litter box here or whatever. They would say, oh, that's going to look terrible. And so he's like, I need your design background. We need to work together. That's how we created catification and this whole idea around you can have a beautiful home and give your cats what they need. Because a lot of people were just not doing anything. It was kind of that stereotype, well, cats don't need anything. And so trying to bust the crazy cat lady stereotype, bust this idea that cats don't need anything. And it's been a long time. Yeah. And I really think that has permeated the culture now. I mean, if you just look online, you can see examples of just amazing things people are doing for their cats. So it warms my heart.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's so cool. Can you tell us about some of the cat cafes that you've worked with and some ideas that you have given them to make their cat spaces more, comfortable for their cats?
Yes. So the reason I love cat cafes so much is because they are not only a great place to hang out, getting cats adopted, but they can be showcases for catification, right? So you have somebody sitting in a cat cafe and they're looking around and they're going, oh, that's a cool cat tower. I could have that in my house, So if the cat cafe is beautifully designed, it gives these cats what they need to thrive in the space. And then it gives the potential adopters ideas for what they can do at home. So I started experimenting with La Guitarra Cat Cafe, which originally opened in Tempe, Arizona. I live in Phoenix. And a friend of mine, the lady who was starting it, Missy Pruitt, she contacted me and we became friends. And she said, I want you to design my cat cafe. And so she started out in a small, about 1,000 square foot space. and we didn't have much budget, so we just were kind of experimenting with things we could get at IKEA or at the thrift store and dressing it up, making it a really fun, inviting space. Um,
Hmm.
but as I started to experiment, you really learn that cats in a cat cafe space, similar to cats in any sort of a shelter situation, it's a transient space for them. They're surrounded by other cats. They may be fearful. They may have a
Hmm.
lot of stress because of these things.
Right.
So you have to really design the space to be extra durable, easily sanitized, and get those cats up and running, just really like there's a dog in next door. Can you hear him barking?
Not at all. No,
Okay.
I didn't hear a thing. You just keep going.
So you want to get them into a place of the most comfort and the least stress possible.
Hmm.
So you have to create a lot of little things. So we were always looking for reducing hiding spaces that are undesirable. So you don't
Hmm.
want cats hiding in corners or in the litter box or under tables where you can't reach them or up way too high or getting in the ceiling, God forbid.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and
Very
so
important.
you're creating the space that gives cats areas of comfort and places to hide, but in a way where you can still monitor them. They're still part of the action. They have choices, right? They have
Hmm.
choices to either interact with the people or to have some alone time, right? So that's where we really started learning about creating that separate litter room that
Hmm.
like a a space where they can get away, like a retreat area, and there's no
Right.
public back there, right? So
Right.
that's such an important thing. I'm sure you know when you talk about it in your book, I'm sure.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I
So
do.
the idea of, because it's a multi-cat space, so my husband and I have 11 cats. So it's
Oh,
kind of like we live in a cat cafe.
you're right.
And so you learn about creating multiple lanes and no dead ends and not places where cats can get cornered if there is like an extra level of stress or excitement happening in the house. If people come over and giving them a place to retreat to. So
Hmm.
it's a lot of it's cat cafes are somewhere between a residential design and like a shelter design,
Yes.
but with this added element of comfort for the visitors, making it very inviting. And then another really important thing is the branding opportunity, right? So when somebody walks into a cat cafe space or into the shelters that are starting to create more beautiful cat housing areas, that is your chance to say, this is our brand, right?
Hmm.
It's beautiful. We have our logos around, we have certain colors, we have a certain style and aesthetic. And that not only speaks positively towards the organization, but
Hmm.
I think it speaks positively towards cat people in general, right?
Yes. Yes, because you're fighting that crazy cat lady stigma. We want to
Exactly.
be cat ladies. We don't want to be crazy, right? So,
Right.
this is amazing. You're speaking my language. You're absolutely speaking my language. What do you find most exciting about owning your own business?
Oh my gosh. Well, I get to do what I love. And for me, my business was created between my two passions, which was design and cats, right?
Hmm.
And so the ability to because I actually had undergraduate degree in interior design, which I
Uh-huh.
never used. Didn't do
Well,
anything with it. And
yeah.
then like 20 years later, all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait. So you get to combine what you love. You get to do things you love every day. I mean, it's definitely always a challenge because there are always things you don't want to do, right? And there's
Yeah.
things that have to get done, and there's challenges that come up. And but I mean, I just was born into an entrepreneurial family, so it was always like I had examples around of like, well, you just do what you love and you
Oh,
figure it
that's
out.
amazing. Oh, that's so wonderful. And it also helps people get rid of like the mom guilt, like
Yeah.
I know I fought that for a long time and I write about that a little bit in my book. It's like, if you have examples of people surrounding you that are, their own boss, that's there's nothing more powerful than that. So,
Yeah,
thank you for sharing
absolutely.
that. What important lesson have you learned by owning your own business?
Well, nobody else cares as much about your business as you do, no matter how much you pay them.
That's so true. That is 100% true. Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh.
And and your output is directly related to your input, right?
Mhm.
We all love the idea of residual income and just sitting at the beach and collecting a check. I haven't quite figured that part out yet.
Me
But
neither, but we're
I
working
think
on it.
about it, right? I think about it and I think, well, yeah, that would be fun for a couple of days, but then I would want to get back to doing what I'm doing, like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so I design spaces for cats. Residential shelter cat cafes. I design products. I write about other people's products. It's just, to have that passion, which is ultimately for me, it's making the world a better place for cats, right? And the
Yes.
people who love them. And so
Hmm.
I do that through design, right?
Hmm.
And through writing and sharing information, right? Because I couldn't work, as an adoption counselor, right? Because that's not good for me. I
Yeah.
would
I
just
can't do
give
the
out.
rescue work. It's too hard.
Yeah,
It's too hard.
exactly.
It's like emotionally like,
Yeah. So I just had to find my niche, knowing what my skill set was and what my passions were, and then, just kind of figure that out and try to do that every day.
yes, exactly, exactly. What advice do you have for those who are interested in starting their own cat cafe?
So I think the most successful ones that I've seen, either that I've been a part of or that I've just visited and interviewed people at, um, really have those two sections. And I don't know if this is exactly how you always present it, where you have somebody who's handling the cats and the rescue side and the adoptions, and
Mhm.
somebody else who is handling the business.
Okay,
You find
yes,
that? Because
yes,
I feel like to ask one person to, I mean, one person could be in charge, but you have to have other people who specialize in those areas. Those are really different skill sets, right?
yes,
So, if, and you see cat cafes kind of fail because they come from one area or the other and they didn't get the right partner to do the other side. But
right.
it's a business and it has to be run by a business in terms of, branding and marketing and image and upkeep and maintenance and all finances, all the things that you need to do to run a business. Especially if there's food involved or a gift shop or whatever, those are all full-time jobs. And then
Yes,
somebody really has to be focused on the welfare of the cats. Where are they coming from? How are they being vetted? How are they being treated? Is, watching the behavior in the space, monitoring any meds, any medical things that have to happen. And then, of course, the whole adoption process. So if one of those things isn't quite right, I think that it's harder to succeed. That's what I think.
that's excellent advice. Excellent advice. Um, Thank you so much. And where, if anybody wants to find you, where can they find you? And also tell us about your books too, like, because I think that reading those books may be helpful for people in for me, like cat cafe owners, like how do you help your cats get along and stuff like that. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So the books are Catification was our first book, and then
Mhm.
Catify to Satisfy was the second one. And so they're both really get into the behavior of cats and what they need in terms of environmental enrichment. And then they're just full of like ideas and tricks and tips and little things for doing that. Most of the ideas in those books almost entirely are DIY.
Okay,
So
that's
you
great.
don't have to go out and buy a bunch of pre-made things. But if you're not handy, there are lots of products now. Since when I first started writing about cats and products and cat design and stuff, I had to scrounge around on the internet to find things. And now
Hmm.
everybody's caught on. All the big manufacturers, there's lots of small companies, there's individuals, there's just tons of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's what I do is I write about that. So the books really, they're available everywhere. They're on Amazon.
Excellent.
And um, they're both New York Times bestsellers, which we're just thrilled because that says a lot about cats.
Yes. And
Cats.
then there's so many people who love them. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. And so those are great places to start. And then my website is Haus Panther, and it's spelled with the German spelling of house, Haus Panther.com. And it is kind of the repository for all of these things. I write about products and interiors and different, rescues and cat cafes and the design residential projects and all sorts of things that are sort of geared around this idea of what do cats need to live their best life and how can you do it in a stylish way. So the website, you can sign up for my email. We do lots of fun giveaways and things. And then it's just that same spelling of Haus Panther on all social media. Please follow Facebook,
Beautiful.
Instagram, a little bit of TikTok when I get to it.
That's amazing. And you also go to cat conventions, don't you?
Yes, actually. There's
Yeah,
let's see. Well, we had Space Cats coming up in next week, but that is in Florida. So now that's going to happen at the end of January.
right.
And then I actually coordinate a big cat festival here. It will be in mid-March in Mesa, Arizona at the Mesa Historical Museum, where I designed an exhibit of this artist, Karen Kuykendall, who the museum has her collection of artwork, and most of it is like fantasy cat art, and it's
Oh,
amazing.
oh,
She
wow.
designed a tarot deck called the Tarot of the Cat People,
Wow.
and then I just became obsessed with her work. So this will be our second year doing a big cat festival. There's a cat over here
I
creeping.
see.
Oh.
You've got cats all over, like all in the background, just climbing around. It's the perfect backdrop for this conversation.
Yes, like I said, it's like living in a cat cafe.
It sure is. Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time and for sharing all of your amazing, advice for people who are trying to meet cat cafes. And we'll definitely follow you on social media and keep up with all of your exciting activities that you have coming up. So thank you again for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Drinks and Whiskers podcast. If you enjoyed it, please take a moment to like this episode, subscribe, and leave an honest review. If you want more information, you can purchase the Drinks and Whiskers book right now on Amazon.com, or you can reach me at Angeli@wittywhisker.com. Now it's time to get out there and start your cat cafe dreams. How will you warm hearts with a drink and a whisker?